From giant octopus attacks to sea creatures and undiscovered shark species reeled in by fishermen, these are fishing anomalies captured that no one believed to have existed. Back in 1922, off the coast of St. Burl, Jersey, a fisherman had a pretty harrowing encounter. This is a real classic fisherman's tale right here. While out on his boat, he was suddenly greeted by something that could only be described as a monster. A massive tentacle shot up from the water and wrapped itself around the mast of the boat, and before he could even process what was happening, another tentacle shot up and grabbed his leg. The boat tilted and was dangerously close to capsizing, but the fisherman wasn't going down without a fight. He quickly pulled out a blade and started slashing at the tentacle holding him, and luckily, another fisherman who was nearby rushed over to help. He managed to beat the tentacle off the mast, freeing the boat and its crew. This terrifying story showed up in the paper soon after. It was shocking, but it wasn't an isolated incident. There were countless reports from the time of fishermen disappearing, and some believe that giant octopuses or squid were behind some of the mysterious vanishings. In 2015, the president and CEO of Mountain and Sea Adventures, Annie Corley, along with her 2 children, were out on a kayaking trip off the shores of Catalina Island in California when they spotted a long, serpentine creature washed up on the sand. It was a 17-foot-long oarfish. These fish are a rare sight, seeing as they live at depths of over 3,000 feet. This makes them a little tough to study, but man, just look at this thing, 17 feet. That's the length of like 3 relatively short people. It's no wonder that back in the day, these fish were responsible for a lot of supposed sea monster sightings. I can imagine being out at sea, tired, scared, homesick, and then seeing a especially long oarfish swimming through the water. I'd think the kraken was real, too. Next on the list, we have the Hawkesbury River monster. There have been stories about a monster stalking the waters of Hawkesbury River in New South Wales, Australia, since the early 1800s. There's nothing all that crazy about the creature's appearance. It's said to look kind of like Nessie, basically an ancient plesiosaur. The indigenous population in the area spoke to European settlers of this monster, warning them not to go too close to the edge of the water, and there's rock art in the area dating back about 3,000 years depicting a 4-flippered, long-necked creature matching the exact description of the creature that they're still reporting sightings of to this day. On to the fisherman part. One story goes that sometime in the 80s, a fisherman was cruising down the river in a small aluminum boat when, out of nowhere, a massive creature surfaced beneath him. The water turned dark, rippled, and swirled, signaling that there was something pretty big below his boat. Suddenly, the creature smacked into the boat, sending it soaring 10 feet into the air. The fisherman got thrown into the water and desperately swam for the shore. The creature started gaining on him at first but fortunately changed course abruptly, diving back underwater. This is wild. I did not know this was a thing, and for good reason. This is an incredibly rare occurrence. Just last year, in 2023, a fisherman in Maine by the name of Jacob Knowles caught a very strange-looking lobster. It was 2 different colors. Now, that doesn't sound all that crazy. I mean, there are plenty of animals that have some variation in color across their bodies, but this was a whole other story. This lobster was split right down the middle, black and greenish on one half and blue on the other. Blue lobsters themselves are super rare, so a half blue, half standard one? The odds of finding a lobster with this 2-tone color pattern are 1 in, 50 million. Knowles himself even stated that this was the coolest lobster he'd ever seen, and being that he's a 5th-generation fisherman, that's saying a lot. The lobster was given the name Bowie, named after David Bowie, who famously had 2 different colored eyes. What's even cooler about this lobster, though, is that it isn't just split into 2 different colors, it's also 2 different sexes. The blue side is male, while the brownish side is female. Next up, we have a story posted by a now-deleted Reddit user in response to a thread about scary fishing experiences. It goes as follows. I've been fishing for years and I've seen my fair share of oddities, but this encounter has me questioning everything. It was a moonless night and the ocean was eerily calm. I was alone on my boat, far from the coastline, chasing a promising spot for a good catch. I'd been casting for a while and was already ready to head back, but as I cast my net one more time and started pulling it back up, I felt the sudden resistance. I figured I'd snagged something heavy, but when the object surfaced, I nearly fell out of the boat. I had no idea what I was looking at. It had long, sinewy tentacles, almost like an octopus, but with large, cold, dead eyes like a fish. I could have sworn I saw rows of sharp teeth in its mouth, too. I didn't even bother trying to get the thing out of my net. I just let go and wasted no time hauling anchor and speeding back to shore. Next on the list is the cabogan, a mysterious creature said to dwell in the Antarctic seas near New Zealand. Only the head of this being was ever seen. Certainly. Here's the text you provided compiled into a single, long paragraph. The head of this strange being has ever been spotted a large bulbous with two big round eyes and possibly another set of eyes or nostrils beneath them. The creature's skin appeared rough and greyish. The most famous sighting happened on April 28 of 1974 when a Japanese fishing crew had an unexpected encounter around 7 p.m. All 28 crew members, including the captain, spotted the creature near Lytton Peninsula. They only saw its head, which was about 1.5 meters tall. The creature hung around for a while, seemingly checking out the crew, before diving back into the water. The captain, shaken by the experience, even drew a sketch of the animal. To this day, no one really knows what the cabogan is or was. Back in 1976, a torpedo recovery boat was doing some ocean research when it unexpectedly hooked something massive while dragging a cargo parachute. The crew had no idea what they'd caught, but whatever it was, it put up a serious fight. The ship was straining to reel it in, but then, all of a sudden, the creature stopped pulling. Finally, they were able to reel in whatever this thing was. It turned out to be a massive shark, which had suffocated after accidentally swallowing part of the parachute. But when they got a closer look, they realized this was unlike any shark they'd ever seen. What they'd caught completely by accident turned out to be an unknown species now known as the megamouth shark. It was about 15 feet long and weighed roughly 750 pounds. In Mozambique, some local anglers were doing what they do best, fishing in a murky stream, when they made an unexpected discovery. As they dragged their net along the streambed, they pulled up something that didn't look quite like anything they'd seen before. It was a small fish with a weak electric charge and a thick, unusual tail. At first, they had no idea what they'd caught, but it turned out to be something pretty extraordinary, an entirely new species. This sparked the interest of scientists across Central and Eastern Africa who were already working on a major project to study a group of fish called polymeris, or elephant fish. These fish, known for their weak electric fields, had been understudied for a long time, and researchers suspected some of them were being misidentified. To dig deeper, a team of scientists went through over 140 of these fish specimens in various archives and compared them. That's when they found it, a pair of elephant fish from northern Mozambique caught back in 2003 that looked completely different from the others. After carefully analyzing their body shape, tail, and other subtle features, they realized they'd found a new species, Polymeris creri, or Kramer's elephant fish. These little guys reach only about 2 inches in length and have an oblong body with a thick tail. Their heads are round with a slight chin, and they have small mouths with teeth and a protruding snout. They also have dark brown or grey coloring on top with a light yellowish underside and fins that fade from brown-grey to slightly transparent. So far, Kramer's elephant fish have only been found in one specific spot in northern Mozambique, living in streams and rivers with sandy and rocky bottoms. This next story comes from Reddit user The Bee, who tells of a time his father nearly caught something massive and mysterious. My dad spent years at sea and has many stories from his time on tanker ships as an engineer. The creepiest story was a simple one. The crew was shark fishing off the bank of a smaller tanker ship, basically attaching meat chunks to hooks and throwing them off the back of the trawl in the ocean in the Southeast Asia or Australia area. My dad, for fun, made up this large steel alloy hook, described it as being incredibly durable. They attached a large chunk of meat to it and threw it off the back. A while later, they hauled it back in only to find the meat gone and the hook bent completely straight. There was nothing that it could have snagged on in the deep ocean as the boat was driving through. My dad and the crew were sufficiently unnerved to think that something large down there could bend a large hook like that. This is a creature that's become known as the anomaly. On Wednesday, July 29 of 2020, a man who chose to stay anonymous came across something strange on Anomalies beach in England. He described it as having 4 flippers and a furry body. The creature was about 15 feet long, with bones sticking out, some as long as 4 feet, and it also stunk bad. He snapped some photos and shared them online, and people went wild trying to figure out what this thing was. It was incredibly decomposed, obviously, so that was basically impossible. Some said it looked like the remains of a woolly mammoth, others thought it was more like a horse. What it didn't look like was something that came out of the water, even though it clearly had. If I came across this thing while casually walking along the beach, though, I'd probably be more grossed out than fascinated. I mean, it's interesting, sure, but sometimes you just want to enjoy a peaceful walk along the beach without feeling like you're about to throw up. All that said, I've been your host, James. I'll catch you, yes you, specifically in the next